Let me tell you something straight from the heart. Leadership is not a title, it's not a corner office, and it sure as hell isn't waiting for someone to hand you a mic and tell you you're in charge. Leadership starts right now. It starts the moment you decide that your life, your energy, and your voice will mean something more than comfort. Leadership is what happens when you stop waiting for permission and start moving with purpose. So I ask you, are you ready to lead? Not someday, not when you get more experience. Are you ready? Now, leadership is energy before it's strategy, before the plans, before the spreadsheets, before the meetings and agendas. Leadership begins with energy, not some soft, vague idea of enthusiasm. We're talking about a force that moves people, a fire that spreads without words. You can hand someone the perfect strategy, the most dialed-in business plan, the cleanest step-by-step process, but if the energy behind it is weak, it dies. People don't follow logic, they follow emotion, they follow certainty, they follow that unshakable force that says, I don't just believe in this, I live it. Energy is contagious. You walk into a room with low energy and the entire place feels heavy. You walk in with power, clarity, intensity, and suddenly the room wakes up. That's leadership. Not waiting until the plan is perfect, not sitting around in analysis paralysis, hoping you'll feel ready. Leadership is the emotional standard you bring into every situation. It's how you show up when no one is clapping, when no one believes yet and the results haven't come. The energy you bring in those moments is what separates the ones who lead from the ones who follow. Because the truth is, people don't remember your tactics. They remember how they felt around you. They remember how you made them feel about themselves. If your presence doesn't ignite something in them, they won't care how many strategies you've mastered. They won't move unless you do. They won't believe unless you show up like you believe. That's the job. That's the burden and the privilege. The inner state of the leader becomes the outer state of the team. You set the emotional tone. If you're uncertain, they'll be hesitant. If you're frustrated, they'll be afraid. But if you're grounded, on fire, and full of conviction, they will follow you through the storm. We've been conditioned to think leadership is about what you know. It's not. It's about what you embody. You don't need to know everything to lead. You need to be something. Someone who stands for more, someone who won't shrink in the face of adversity. Someone whose internal state is stronger than their external circumstances. That's what energy is. It's the ability to shift the atmosphere, not wait for it to shift for you. You want to be a leader? Learn to manage your energy before you manage people. Learn to own your state before you own a strategy. Because energy isn't just hype, it's alignment. It's when your mind, your emotions, and your body are locked in on one outcome. When you walk into that room and your physiology, your voice, your eye contact, all scream, I'm here and I'm certain. It's not arrogance, it's not fake. It's the byproduct of choosing every single day to tap into something higher than fear, higher than doubt. The energy of a leader doesn't come from caffeine or applause. It comes from purpose, from knowing what you stand for, from having a reason that's bigger than your excuses. And that kind of energy, it doesn't whisper, it roars. People are starving for that energy. They are drowning in distraction, fear, uncertainty. And they are desperate for someone to come in and remind them that strength still exists, that vision still matters, that passion is not dead. You get to be that person, not because you have a manual in your hand, but because you have fire in your soul. That's what makes leadership magnetic. That's what makes people follow without being told. Because in a world of noise, your energy becomes a signal. In a world of doubt, your certainty becomes a lighthouse you want to lead. Don't just speak louder, feel deeper. Don't just strategize, energize. Make it real inside of you and it will become real for everyone around you. The strongest strategy in the world cannot override a weak state. With the right energy, it can ignite action before one word is spoken. Leadership is not the product of a plan, it is the reflection of a presence. and presence is power. Leaders don't react, they rise. When pressure hits, most people flinch. They duck, they delay, they point fingers, or they freeze. They react. And reacting is easy. It's what the brain wants to do. It's a survival mechanism. Instinctual, emotional, automatic. But leadership? Leadership begins the moment you break that pattern. It's when you pause in the chaos, take control of your internal state, and make a conscious choice to rise above the moment. That's what separates a leader from the rest. The average person gets pulled by the storm. A leader becomes the calm inside it. Reaction is what happens when you give power to the environment. The email comes in and it sets your tone. The numbers dip and your belief shrinks. The team messes up and suddenly your trust vanishes. That's reactivity. It's living like a thermometer, only reflecting the temperature around you. But a true leader is a thermostat. They don't reflect energy, they set it. They don't wait to feel certain, they decide to be. Leadership is about rising into a state where your decisions aren't driven by fear, frustration, or fatigue, but by vision, by values, by intentionality. And don't get it twisted, rising doesn't mean faking it. It doesn't mean pretending everything's fine when it's not. It means taking ownership of your response. It means stepping into the discomfort, facing it fully, and still choosing to move with clarity and power. When things fall apart, the leader isn't the one yelling the loudest. The leader is the one asking better questions. The one breathing deeper, the one listening closer. The one who sees what others miss because they're not consumed by panic. They're grounded, they're focused. They've trained themselves to rise. It's a discipline. It's not luck, it's not a personality trait, it's a muscle. One that gets stronger every time you choose not to react. Every time you interrupt the emotional loop and say, no, I'm going to lead through this. That might mean pausing before you speak. That might mean holding space when your instinct is to control. That might mean pushing back when your fear says, play it safe. Because the difference between a good leader and a great one is this. The great ones respond with intention, not impulse. And here's what most people miss. Rising doesn't always look dramatic, sometimes it's quiet. It's in the decision to listen instead of defend. It's in the choice to show up to the meeting even when everything inside you wants to shut down. It's in holding your standard when everyone else is dropping theirs. Those moments don't always come with applause, but they are the foundation of trust. People feel that. They may not have words for it, but they know when someone's grounded, they know when someone's anchored. And in a world addicted to reaction, that kind of presence is magnetic. You don't rise for yourself, you rise for others. Because when a leader rises, it gives permission for everyone else to do the same. Your team, your family, your clients, they all mirror the way you show up. If you get rattled, they get scared. If you panic, they hesitate. But when you rise, when you stay strong, centered, and focused in the face of pressure, you shift the dynamic. You create a space where possibility still exists even when everything looks uncertain. And in that space, people grow. In that space, people believe again. Because you believed first. There will always be moments that challenge your patience, your emotions, your vision. You will be tested, not once, but constantly. That's not punishment, that's the proving ground of leadership. And the question will always be the same. Will you react or will you rise? Will you give in to the pull of emotion or will you lead yourself first before leading others? Because leadership starts within. You can't lead a room until you can lead your mind. You can't guide others through uncertainty if you're enslaved by your own doubt. Rising isn't about pretending to be fearless. It's about being bigger than your fear. Vision pulls more than push ever will. You can push people, you can yell, remind, threaten, incentivize, you can use pressure, deadlines, and discipline. And sure, it might work for a while. You might get compliance, movement, motion. But not passion, not ownership, not devotion. Push is limited. Push is external. Push runs out, because push is about force. But vision pulls, vision draws people in. Vision activates something inside them that no paycheck, no punishment, no external motivation ever could. People don't want to be managed, they want to be moved. And that's what vision does. It moves the human spirit. A powerful vision doesn't just tell people what to do, it reminds them who they are. It connects their day-to-day actions with something bigger than the task, something that has meaning, something that lives beyond survival, beyond stress, beyond the mundane. Vision doesn't start with instructions, it starts with inspiration. It speaks to that primal part of a person that wants to matter, that wants to grow, that wants to make a dent in the world. You tap into that and suddenly people stop needing to be pushed. They start running. Because when people see the vision, really see it, they begin to own it. It becomes theirs. It's no longer your mission they're executing, it's our mission. And when that happens, everything changes. Now the late nights don't feel like sacrifices, they feel like investments. The tough conversations aren't scary, they're necessary. The standards aren't rules, they're reflections of what we believe in. That's the difference between a team that's pushed and a team that's pulled. One is just doing the job, the other is driven. But here's what makes it real. Vision has to be felt, not just articulated, not just written in some company handbook or splashed on a slide deck. It has to live in you. It has to burn in your gut. It has to light up your eyes when you talk about it. If you're not emotionally connected to your vision, no one else will be. People don't follow what you say, they follow what you embody, they follow conviction. So if you want to lead with vision, it has to be more than a tagline. It has to be your truth. Vision is not about fantasy, it's not about wishing or dreaming in a passive way. It's about creating a vivid, compelling picture of the future and then showing people the bridge to get there. It's about pulling the future into the present through belief, language, and action. And when that picture is clear, when it's specific, when it's emotionally charged, it starts to attract the right people, the right momentum, the right behaviors, because the mind moves toward what it sees clearly. The human heart leans toward what it feels deeply. That's the pull. Push will get you obedience. Vision gets you loyalty. Push might get you a result. Vision creates a movement, and we've all felt the difference. We've all had jobs, leaders, or environments where we were constantly being pushed. And it drains you. You get tired, you burn out, you start counting the hours. But when you're pulled, when the vision is alive, when the mission matters, you lose track of time. You get in flow. You're not just showing up, you're in fully, because you're not being driven by pressure, you're being guided by purpose. Great leaders don't just push people toward goals, they pull them into possibility. They describe the future so vividly that it becomes magnetic. They talk about it so clearly people can taste it. They build belief by painting a picture of what's on the other side of struggle, and suddenly the struggle doesn't feel like suffering, it feels like progress. That's the gift of vision. It gives meaning to the hard, it gives context to the grind, and it makes people stretch, not because they have to, but because they want to. Because when vision is real, it doesn't need to be enforced, it gets enrolled. And that enrollment, that emotional buy-in, that's where the real magic happens. True leadership is ownership without excuse. Leadership doesn't start when things are going well. It doesn't show up when everything is smooth, when the plan works, when the outcomes are easy to digest. True leadership begins when things go sideways, when the pressure's on, when the result isn't what you hoped for. And in that moment, you only have two choices. You either take ownership or you make excuses, but you can't do both. And that's the dividing line. That's where the real leaders are revealed. Because true leadership isn't about looking perfect, it's about owning everything, especially when it's uncomfortable. Ownership is radical, it's rare, it's powerful. It means you don't wait for someone to save you, fix it for you, take the hit for you. You stand in the middle of the storm and say, this is mine. I may not have created every condition, but I'm responsible for what I do next. That's what separates a leader from a victim. Victims look for blame, leaders look for answers. Victims shrink, leaders step up. And this isn't about taking the fall to look noble. It's about owning the outcome, good or bad, and using it to grow, to adjust, to lead forward. Excuses are easy. They're seductive. There's always someone else to blame. The economy, the team, the timing, the lack of support, the system. But every time you make an excuse, you give away your power. You hand over your ability to change, to influence, to create something new. Excuses feel good in the moment, they protect the ego. But over time, they build a cage. Because the more you excuse, the more you reinforce the belief that your life is being controlled by everything except you. That's not leadership. That's learned helplessness wrapped in rational language. Ownership is freedom. It's not always comfortable, but it's empowering. When you own your decisions, your energy, your results, you take the steering wheel back. You stop waiting for the stars to align and start aligning yourself with action. That's what leaders do. They don't need everything to be fair. They don't need a perfect plan. They don't need applause. They need one thing: the will to say, no matter what happens, I'm responsible for how I show up. That's not just leadership. It's maturity. It's emotional strength. It's internal power. And let's be clear, ownership doesn't mean blaming yourself for everything. It means owning your part, fully and honestly. It means being the one who's willing to ask, what could I have done better? Where did I hesitate? Where did I ignore the signs? Where did I play small when I should have spoken up? That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Because when you take full responsibility, you gain full access to change. You move from being a passenger to being the driver, and once you're driving, there's no limit to where you can go. Leadership is not about being right, it's about getting it right. It's about prioritizing growth over ego. That means sometimes you have to look in the mirror and face the hard truths. You have to own the missed deadlines, the miscommunications, the breakdowns in trust. You have to stop pointing fingers and start building bridges, and you do that by dropping the story and picking up the standard. The moment you stop making excuses is the moment you start building credibility. People trust leaders who take ownership. They don't follow perfection, they follow consistency, humility, and strength. People are watching you, whether you realize it or not. They're watching how you respond under pressure, how you handle adversity, how you talk when things go wrong. If you dodge responsibility, so will they. If you blame, they'll blame. But if you own it, if you lead from the front, not just with words but with actions, you give them permission to rise too. That's the ripple effect of ownership. It elevates everyone around you. It creates a culture of accountability, of growth, of resilience. Because when leadership is modeled through ownership, people start to believe they can own their outcomes too. And when that happens, the entire game changes. The service is the secret weapon. The world often tells you that leadership is about being the loudest voice in the room, that it's about power, control, dominance, that to lead is to command. But the greatest leaders, the ones who build legacy, loyalty, and lasting impact, aren't driven by ego. They're driven by service, real service, the kind that asks not what can I get from these people, but what can I give to them that changes their lives? That mindset, that heart posture, that intention is the secret weapon that most people overlook. Because service doesn't mean being soft. It doesn't mean shrinking. It doesn't mean sacrificing your vision. It means leading with purpose. It means seeing people not as tools to get a result, but as human beings with potential you're here to unlock. The leader who serves is not the one who demands respect, but the one who earns it by consistently showing up for others, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable. It's not about titles. It's not about hierarchy. It's about impact. And impact comes from investing in people, not just processes. A servant leader walks into a room and asks, how can I make this space better? How can I leave this person stronger? How can I help them see what they can't see in themselves? That level of intention creates trust, it creates loyalty, it creates a foundation that doesn't shake under pressure. Because when people know you care about more than the outcome, when they know you care about them, they go to war for you, not because they have to, but because they want to. Because you've already gone to war for them. You can lead with power, or you can lead with purpose. Power might move people through fear or force, But purpose moves people through belief, through connection, through love. And make no mistake, service is love in action. It's choosing to elevate someone else. Not because it benefits you directly, but because it's who you are. And when that becomes your standard, your people feel it, your team feels it, your family feels it, and more importantly, they begin to mirror it. Service is contagious. When it's modeled at the top, it multiplies throughout the culture. Service also gives you stamina. When leadership is about you, your results, your image, your accolades, you will burn out. You'll hit a wall. Because no external reward will ever be enough to sustain you through real challenges. But when you're driven by service, something shifts. Now it's not about you, it's about what flows through you. It's about becoming a vessel for impact. And when that becomes the fuel, you gain access to another level of energy, focus, and fire that most people never tap into. Because you're not chasing success, you're contributing to something bigger than yourself. And here's the paradox: the more you serve, the more influence you gain. The more you give, the more you receive. It's not manipulation, it's alignment. People are wired to respond to authenticity, to generosity, to sincerity. And when they feel that from a leader, they open up, they commit, they stretch. Because the greatest gift you can give someone is the belief that they matter, that their growth is worth your time, that their wins are your wins. That's what service says louder than any speech, louder than any slogan. It says, I see you, I'm with you, let's rise together. Some leaders build systems, others build people. And the ones who build people are the ones we remember, because leadership isn't about creating followers, it's about creating other leaders. And that starts with service. It starts with putting your agenda aside long enough to lift someone else up. It starts with listening, with empathy, with a fierce commitment to help others win. That kind of leadership is rare, it's radical, it's powerful, and once you taste it, once you lead not for your gain, but for their growth, you'll never want to lead any other way. Leaders build people, not just products. The business world celebrates innovation. It praises disruption, speed, scale, and sleek design. It glorifies results, metrics, market share, the next big thing. But real leaders know that the real product isn't just the service you offer, the software you develop, or the brand you build. The real product is people, your people. Because the strength of a company isn't in its code, its campaigns, or even its capital. It's in the hearts, minds, and spirits of the people who bring the mission to life every single day. You can have the best product in the world, but if your people aren't empowered, developed, and truly seen, it's only a matter of time before it crumbles. That's the truth most leaders avoid because it requires them to shift the spotlight. It's easier to focus on growth charts than to grow humans. Easier to invest in features than in feedback. Easier to launch a new tool than to slow down and ask, how is my team really doing? But leadership isn't about taking the easiest path, it's about choosing the most impactful one. People aren't machines. They're not code you can fix with a patch or upgrade overnight. People require patience, they require belief, they require vision, and they require a leader who sees beyond the title, the tasks, and the performance reviews. Someone who sees that's the job. Not just to manage their productivity, but to elevate their possibility. Because when you build people, you don't just get results, you build resilience. You build trust. You build something that can't be disrupted by market swings or competitors, because it's rooted in culture, in loyalty, in legacy. You don't build great teams by demanding more. You build them by developing more, by mentoring, coaching, challenging with love, holding high standards not just for output but for growth, for how people carry themselves, for how they speak to each other, for how they bounce back from setbacks. Because leadership isn't just about getting people to perform. It's about helping them become someone they didn't even know they could be. It's about holding a mirror to their greatness until they start to believe in it too. The irony is, when you focus on people, the products get better. The innovation flows, the culture strengthens, the retention rises. Because people who feel invested in give back tenfold. They care more, they show up differently. They solve problems instead of waiting to be told what to do. They lead even without a title. And that's how momentum is created, not through pressure, but through belief. Not through fear, but through trust. When people feel like they matter, they go beyond the job description. They start to own the mission as if it were their own. A leader who builds people listens more than they lecture. They don't just speak, they connect. They understand that every conversation is an opportunity to strengthen belief. Every check-in is a chance to course correct, inspire, or unlock something new. They pay attention to energy, not just execution. They ask questions like, what's getting in your way? And how can I support you better? Because they know that emotional safety creates strategic speed. That when people feel seen and safe, they stop playing small and start playing full out. And this isn't just about the bottom line. It's about doing leadership right. It's about making sure that years from now, when your people look back, they don't just remember what they built, they remember who they became in the process. They remember the leader who saw their fire before they did. The leader who challenged them, stood by them, and believed in them relentlessly. That kind of impact doesn't just build careers, it builds character. It builds families, it builds futures. People will change, markets will shift, technology will evolve, but people are the one investment that pays back forever when you pour into them with intention, consistency, and heart. Leadership isn't about leaving a legacy in what you create, it's about leaving it in who you elevate. Because at the end of the day, the true measure of your leadership won't be the product you launched, it'll be the lives you lifted. Consistency beats intensity. It's easy to show up once with fire. It's easy to go all in for a day, a week, maybe even a month. You get excited, you set the goal, you feel the rush, you pour everything into the moment, and for a while, it feels like you've cracked the code. But then life hits. The emotion fades, the resistance shows up, and the truth reveals itself. Intensity doesn't last. Consistency does. Anyone can be intense for a season, but real leaders, they show up when it's boring. They show up when it's hard. They show up especially when it's inconvenient, because they understand that greatness isn't built in a sprint, it's built in the reps. Intensity is sexy, it's dramatic, it looks good on social media. It's the late night grind sessions, the big declarations, the 30-day challenges, the watch me go all out mentality, but intensity burns hot and fast. It gives you a spike, not a system. It ignites the spark, but doesn't sustain the flame. And the people who live on intensity eventually crash. Because you can't build something sustainable on adrenaline alone. You need rhythm, you need habits, you need discipline. That's where consistency lives. And that's where true transformation happens. Consistency is quiet, it's not flashy. It doesn't shout, it doesn't post, it just does. Day in, day out, over and over again, and it's not perfect, it's persistent. The consistent leader doesn't always feel like it, but they honor the commitment anyway. They don't need the motivation, they rely on their standard. They know that the version of themselves they're becoming isn't created in one massive leap, it's carved out in small intentional steps, repeated over time. That's how you earn confidence. That's how you build identity. Not from one big win, but from the daily decision to keep going. And here's the thing, people are watching. They don't follow what you do once, they follow what you do consistently. Your consistency builds trust. It says, I'm not just here when it's easy, I'm here when it counts. It teaches people that your word means something, that you don't need fireworks to be on fire for your mission, that the fuel you run on isn't hype, it's hunger. The kind that's quiet, focused, unshakable. The kind that doesn't get distracted by results because it's obsessed with the process. Intensity can get you attention, but consistency builds reputation. Intensity starts the race, consistency finishes it. And leadership is not about short bursts of inspiration, it's about long-term elevation. It's about doing what needs to be done, whether anyone notices or not. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't rely on the mood to dictate the movement. Because moods change, emotions fluctuate, but your mission, That's sacred, and it deserves more than just your best days. It deserves all of you. Especially on the days you don't feel like it. The results you're after, whether it's building a business, a team, a family, or a legacy, don't come from what you do occasionally. They come from what you repeatedly do. Not once, but always. Not when it's fun, but when it's necessary. And that kind of consistency isn't a talent, it's a choice. It's the decision to show up with integrity, to execute the basics at a high level, to fall in love with the fundamentals. Because mastery doesn't come from complexity, it comes from consistency in the simple things, done with intention and done without excuse. The greatest leaders you admire weren't made in moments of intensity. They were shaped in the unseen hours, in the early mornings, in the quiet nights, in the unglamorous grind. They became who they are by refusing to skip the reps, by refusing to let emotion override execution, by choosing to build rather than just burst. And that choice, made again and again, is what separates the ones who start fast from the ones who finish strong. Legacy is leadership that lasts beyond you. Legacy is not about what you leave behind in terms of wealth, accolades, or material accomplishments. True legacy is the imprint you leave on people, the kind of impact that continues to unfold long after you're gone. It's the leaders who make people feel seen, heard, and empowered that leave the deepest marks on the world. When leadership is real, it extends beyond the present moment, beyond the person at the front of the room, and beyond the immediate wins or losses. Legacy is built through the example you set, the culture you create, and the lives you change along the way. True leadership isn't about your own rise, it's about how many others you help rise with you. It's about understanding that the influence you have isn't meant to be hoarded, but passed on. When you lead with the mindset of leaving a legacy, you begin to see every decision, every interaction, every challenge through the lens of what it will create for the future. It's not about your personal success. It's about the success of the people you serve, the growth of the teams you build, and the transformation you inspire in others. It's about creating an environment where leadership doesn't end with you. It flourishes long after you're gone. A true legacy is never dependent on you being the loudest or most visible leader in the room. It's about having the humility to see that your success is intrinsically tied to the growth and success of others. The true test of leadership is not in how many people you lead, it's in how many leaders you create. A leader who is obsessed with building their own legacy may find short-term recognition, but a leader who is focused on building others' legacies creates a movement that endures. Your legacy is not written in your own achievements, but in the leaders you cultivate, the wisdom you pass on, and the values you instill in the people who will carry them forward. You can measure your legacy by the actions of those you've mentored. Do they continue to rise? Do they lead with the same commitment, passion, and purpose that you model for them? If the answer is yes, you know your leadership has transcended the boundaries of your own life. Your leadership has become part of the fabric of their lives, part of their DNA. Legacy lives in their decisions, in their leadership, in their values. You've created something far bigger than yourself, and that's the power of legacy. It spreads, it multiplies, and it impacts generations. Your leadership becomes a part of a much larger story than your own. When you lead with legacy in mind, every decision you make has greater weight. You start thinking about the long-term impact of your actions. You don't just focus on the immediate results. You think about the ripple effects they will create in the future. You ask yourself, what will this decision teach? How will this decision empower others to step into their own greatness? Leaders who are focused on legacy understand that their influence is a tool for shaping future leaders, not just their own immediate circle. They know that their power lies in the ability to create other empowered individuals who can lead with purpose, passion, and vision. Legacy isn't built on short-term gains. It's built over time through sustained effort, deep conviction, and unwavering commitment to a vision. It's about the principles you hold in the face of adversity, the integrity you exhibit when no one's watching, and the resilience you show when everything is falling apart. Those are the qualities that people remember. Those are the actions that create lasting impact. True legacy is built when you do what's right, not what's easy. When you're willing to make the tough calls, take the unpopular stances, and stand firm in your beliefs. Because you understand the importance of laying a foundation for the future, ultimately, legacy is a form of leadership that is selfless. It's about elevating others so they can lead, grow, and make a difference of their own. The greatest leaders know their time is limited, but the impact of their leadership is limitless. Their legacy lives through the work of those they've inspired, the wisdom they've shared, and the way they've shaped the world around them. Leadership that lasts beyond you is not about the titles you hold or the achievements you collect. It's about the lives you touch and the leaders you create, who will carry the torch forward for generations to come. Leadership is not a static position. It is a dynamic force that evolves through consistent effort, profound vision, and unwavering commitment. Throughout this journey, we've explored the fundamental truth that true leadership isn't just about making decisions or driving results. It's about shaping lives, creating growth, and leaving an impact that outlasts us. Leadership is not about the power we hold or the titles we claim, but the people we serve and the legacy we leave behind. It's about building individuals, empowering teams, and contributing to a cause far greater than any of us. Every principle we've discussed reinforces the idea that leadership is about energy, resilience, and ownership. It's about embracing service and becoming the kind of leader who doesn't demand respect, but earns it through consistent actions and genuine care. Leaders don't just react to situations, they rise above them, charting a course that others can follow, a course that builds toward the future. It's the small, consistent steps taken day after day that create the long-term success, not the bursts of intensity that fade with time. Vision is what pulls us forward. Vision is the magnetic force that aligns our actions with purpose. It's not about pushing harder or working longer, it's about leading with clarity and direction, guiding others towards a goal that resonates deeply with them. True leadership doesn't settle for quick wins. It is rooted in the deep, foundational work of building people, nurturing potential, and creating an environment where individuals can thrive. At the heart of leadership lies the unwavering belief in ownership. Leaders are not defined by their successes alone, they are defined by their ability to own their decisions, their mistakes, and their role in the collective success of the group. It's about holding the line even when it's difficult, and ensuring that every action is aligned with the greater mission. This is where trust is built and where real leadership shines, not in the moments of glory, but in the everyday choices that reflect integrity, humility, and resilience. Service is the secret weapon of leadership. It's the willingness to put others first, to lead not for personal gain, but for the growth and development of those around you. Leaders who serve do not seek validation or accolades, they seek to elevate others, knowing that when their people rise, they rise with them. This selflessness creates a culture of trust, loyalty, and excellence, qualities that are foundational to any successful team or organization. And above all, leadership is about legacy. True leaders know that their impact extends far beyond their own lives. The real measure of leadership is not in the titles you acquire or the wealth you accumulate, but in the people you've empowered, the lives you've touched, and the leaders you've helped to rise. Legacy is the blueprint that remains long after you've stepped off the stage. It's the continued growth and success of those you've mentored, inspired, and led. A ripple effect that continues to transform the world in ways you may never fully see, but know that you've contributed to. In the end, leadership isn't about trying to control or manipulate, it's about empowering others, lifting them up, and creating an environment where they can do their best work. It's about consistency over intensity, people over products, service over self-interest, and ownership over excuses. Leaders are defined not by the challenges they overcome, but by how they inspire others to rise alongside them, how they create something that lasts beyond their time. And that is the truest form of leadership.